Hello and welcome to the Knitting Expat Podcast channel. My name is Mina and I am the host of this podcast, I guess. Today I am filming a very special episode 130 for you. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you are a new viewer, welcome. I hope you enjoy what you see. I will tell you this is not a typical podcast for me. If you would like to see a more typical podcast, go back and watch any of the previous podcasts, episode 129, 28, backwards. Those ones are all more typical. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. Like I said, this is not a typical podcast. I won't be going through works in progress, finished objects, things like that. But I decided, since we're approaching the end of the year, and the last couple of years I've done this as part of a main podcast or as part of a vlog, where I've gone over my knitting stats for the year. So basically, like how many projects I've knit, how much yarn I've used, etc, etc. And so I collated all of that information for this year. I've made a few notes and some comparisons with how I did last year as well. So other than that, I also thought it would be interesting to combine this video with a bit of a Q&A as well. So I asked on a video previously. So if you don't know, I'm also doing Vlogmas this year, where I'm recording a video every day in the month of December, and I will probably go until the new year. I will probably extend it and continue vlogging every day until the end of the month after Christmas as well, which is what I did last year. And then, so I asked on a video a couple of days ago if you guys had any questions to let me know, so I'll be going through those questions and answering those here as well. And I also asked the same question on Instagram. I've got a few more questions there. Happy holidays tag, that's what it is. So there's about 15 questions, Christmas related questions there, which I will also answer. So this will probably be quite a long video. I will leave timestamps in the description box to where you can skip ahead to if you want to skip certain bits. And yeah, so we will jump right in initially with knitting stats. I also have spinning stats for you guys, because there again, if you're new or haven't watched in a while, I've recently taken up spinning. I got a Kromsky Sonata spinning wheel less than 2 months ago, and I have been like spinning up a storm since then. So that will also be part of this. So starting with knitting stats. Overall in 2018, so far, I have 2 projects on the go at the moment, and I've counted both of these in this, but one of them might not be finished before the end of the year. And it's quite likely that I will cast on and finish a couple of other projects this year still. So so far I have 89 projects that I have done this year. Like I said, 2 of them are still currently active. 1 more than likely will be finished this year. The other one is a new design, and I feel like that will probably be on hold until the new year, just because of where it's at in the design and my time that I have to work on it. But I will be casting on at least 1 or 2 pairs of socks. 1 or both may be finished before the end of the year. I have a couple of baby knits that I want to start and finish this year. And yeah, so I think overall I will probably be at around 90 projects for this year by the time the year is finished. And that is, so far I'm currently about 23 projects down on where I was last year. I think last year I had finished about 112 projects. So a little bit under what I got last year, but that is totally fine. I'm not trying to beat what I did last year or anything. Last year, I will admit, I knit a lot of baby socks last year, as evidenced by this little baby sock advent calendar behind me. I knit a lot of these baby socks for my daughter, who was not even 1 at the time. So yeah, with the idea of using them this year and in future years as her advent calendar. So that was a lot of projects right there as well. So in terms of breaking that down, what that breaks down as at the moment, I have knit 45 pairs of socks this year, which is 1 more than I knit last year. But there might be 1 or 2 more to add to that. I knit 4 shawls this year, which is actually quite low for me. Last year I knit 8, so 4 down on last year. I knit 17 hats. Didn't realise I'd knit quite so many, but I have. That's 8 more than I knit last year. I knit 4 cowls, which is 1 more than I knit last year. And I've also knit 5 adult garments this year, all for me, which is 2 more than I knit last year, which is pretty insane. I also knit 11 baby knits this year, which breaks down as 5 sweaters, 3 hats, 2 pairs of socks and 1 pair of mittens. That's actually 30 less than I knit last year. Bear in mind, I knit a fair few baby hats for Layla last year, and like I said, at least 12 pairs of baby socks, and a bunch of other baby related things as well. Also for my sister-in-law who was pregnant last year, so there was a lot of baby knits that happened last year. And I feel like that's the biggest difference in terms of my finished project count for last year and this year. And I knit 3 sort of what I called miscellaneous knitting projects because they didn't really fit into any other category, and that was actually the same as last year. So this year it was a hot water bottle cover, a selection of ornaments, which I counted as 1 project, and a pair of adult mittens. So all in all, I have knit approximately 10 kilos of yarn and approximately 34 kilometers of yarn, like length wise, this year. And I have used up 144 skeins. 7 of those skeins are currently in use, but will probably be around 144 to 145 mark by the end of the year. And I added 147 skeins to my stash this year. So actually, I've used almost as much as I've added to my stash, which I'm quite happy with, to be quite honest. I feel like that's a pretty good achievement, especially compared to last year, which I'll get to now. So last year I knit approximately 12 kilos of yarn, just under 12 kilos, so more than I did this year. And I knit approximately 40 kilometers of yarn, again a bit less this year. And I used 153 skeins of yarn, which was again more than I knit this year, but I added 264 skeins to my stash last year, which was crazy, whereas I only added 147 to my stash this year, so I feel like I did a lot better on average. I also destashed a whole lot of yarn from my stash this year, over 100 skeins, a lot got destashed earlier this year. But unfortunately I didn't actually keep a record of how many I destashed, so I can't give you any details on that. So yeah, I'm actually really happy with where I'm at with my knitting. I knit a lot, knit through a lot of yarn, and yes, I did add a lot to my stash this year, but I feel like I've used up almost as much as I've added, so I feel like that's a pretty good balance right there. I feel like if I can keep it around, you know, as much in as, if I can use up as much as I bring in, then I feel like overall that's a pretty good balance to have, because then my stash really isn't growing overall over the course of the year. So I feel, like I said, I feel happy about that. And yeah, and I do obviously still have yarn. Again, if you've been watching for a while, you'll know that we're currently living in the UK, and up until the early part of this year, so in January of this year, we were living in New York, and it's a big whole palaver. It's quite a long story, I'm not going to go into it, but we moved back to the UK, and our stuff is now, we put stuff into storage because we weren't sure what was happening, and it's a few months ago it became apparent that we were going to stay for a while, or at least for the foreseeable future. And yeah, so at the end of November, my husband went back to New York and finally organised all of our stuff to be shipped over. So I do have a fair bit of yarn that's waiting for me, and that's coming over. It's actually on a ship now, it's finally been shipped, and it should be here in the new year at some point. So so yeah, I'm gonna get more yarn back, which is good, because I was looking at my stash the other day and I only have 25 skeins of yarn destined to be socks, and since I knit 45 pairs of socks this year, that's clearly not enough to get me through the next year. But that's a bit of a joke. Hugo, okay, I currently have the camera precariously balanced on top of the cat tree that I've moved over to this side of the living room so I could record by the Christmas tree, but Hugo is now, one of my cats has now decided to come climb the cat tree, and that's what the shaking was, so apologies for that. But hopefully he won't knock the camera over and he will just patiently sit and wait. So yeah, that's the current status of my stash that's on its way, and I think once it arrives I will have another little go through and decide if I want to destash any more yarns than I have so far. I probably will, to be honest. I feel like I'm in a very good sort of state of not keeping things that I no, I won't use or don't have an immediate plan for. Not because I don't like it, just because I can't see myself using it at this point. Anyway, moving on to spinning. So I got my Kromsky Sonata spinning wheel in October this year. Cat fluff in my coffee. So I actually got it on the 26th of October, so less than 2 months ago. Hugo. Less than 2 months ago. And since then, bear in mind, I didn't really use it the first week I had it because of we had a lot going on at that point in the month. But so since I got the wheel, I have knit £2 worth spun. Jeez, I have spun £2 worth of fibre, so about 927 grams to be precise. 2 pounds of fibre, and from that I have created 15 skeins of yarn. Anything from sample sizes of like 7-15 gram sample sizes of fibre up to full-sized skeins or bundles of fibre like 100 gram, 110 gram braids or like bats or whatever of fibre. So I have about 7 full-size skeins. I don't say full-size, I mean like 100 grams or more of fibre that I've turned into yarn, and the rest are smaller amounts, usually somewhere between, like I said, like 15 to like 20-30 grams of fibre into like little mini sample skeins. In total, I've spun up 2,453 meters of yarn, so almost 2.5 kilometers. I'm getting my words all jumbled up, which is pretty cool, ranging anywhere from a fingering sport to a worsted bulky in the different yarns. My 2-ply sort of yarn is turning out to be more of a fingering to sport weight sort of thickness, and my 3-ply or chain ply yarns, I've only ever done a chain ply 3-ply. I don't have a lazy Kate that can take 3 bobbins, so I can only do a chain ply as a 3-ply at the moment. And my chain plies are turning out to be more of a DK to worsted sort of weight, which is quite nice. Like it's nice to know that I can achieve a range of thicknesses as well at the moment. My spinning has definitely gotten more and more consistent as time has gone on, and yeah, I'm really happy with how it's going so far, and I'm really enjoying it, finding it very relaxing. And the only other thing I wanted to mention was I have so far knit 3 things. So far knit 3 skeins of my hand spun. Well, 2 of them were technically half skeins from the same bat. Sorry about the shaking again. Hugo just jumped onto the cat tree. I can't really tell him off for going on the cat tree because that's kind of his thing, and I've stolen it to use for filming. So sorry about the shaking. You're just gonna have to live with it. So the first thing that I knit using my hand spun was this hot water bottle cover. So Perry brought this my husband brought this hot water bottle back for me from New York when he was last there, and because it was left at where we were living, and I decided to knit a cover for it because it never had a cover. And I knit up the first bat that I ever spun. I split it and I spun and plied one as a 2-ply back on itself, and the other one I plied as a chain ply, and I striped them together to get this sort of really fun effect. And it was a gradient bat, so the chain ply obviously maintained the gradient, and the 2-ply barber poled it. So it was just a really fun thing to use it for. It was very practical, and yeah, it works really great as a hot water bottle cover. And the other thing that I knit using my hand span are some ornaments. So there's one here I can show you. I've knit some tree ornaments. So this one's a sock, and I've also knit a little hat as well, which get that back on there, which is just up here. And yeah, so I've also knit a fair few. I used up all the fibre to knit ornaments with, and I knit another like 5 or 6 5 or 6 little sock ornaments, which I've used to which as parts of like Christmas presents given to friends and family. Again, words are failing me. Okay, so now we will move on to the question portion of the video. So I'm just going to pull up Instagram first. So in no particular order, and I'm not going to read out names or anything. So no particular order. First question, in the future, do you think you will start weaving? Honestly, probably not. I'm not as interested in weaving. I was always fairly interested in spinning. I always knew I wasn't interested in drop spindling. So I always said to anyone who asked me about it that if I learned to spin, it will be on a wheel, and I knew myself, and I knew that would be the only way it would stick. And yeah, lo and behold, I learned to spin on a wheel, and it's been going ever since. Well, for the last 2 months. The next question, so going back to weaving, I don't really see myself weaving, at least not at this point, and I've no real interest at the moment in spinning. That's not to say I won't be interested in spinning in the future. Just right now, it's not something that I find particularly appealing for me to want to learn how to do. Next question. I'm sure you've answered this question already. Your gift knit socks that you make throughout the year, do all your friends and family have the same foot size? No, they don't all have the same foot size, but most of my friends and most of the females that I knit for have very similar foot sizes, like within a centimetre of each other, like very close, the foot sizes. And I have got like foot cutouts for everyone, so it's I've measured them against like a ruler, and I've got a sock ruler and I've marked on it where everyone's foot lengths are. So I typically knit for all the women the same size, and then for all the men the same size, because again, the men in my life apparently all have very similar sized feet. So it's worked out quite well for me so far that I've only ever had to knit to like 2, maybe 3 different sort of foot lengths depending on who I'm knitting for. And usually I know who it's going to when I'm knitting the socks. I have a person in mind for it. So that's how I do it. And then if I am knitting for anyone else, I either try and find out their foot size to then figure out how long to knit it for, or I make an educated guess. Socks can be relatively forgiving in terms of the length, so as long as you're in the right ballpark, generally it works okay. I've just started recording a podcast on my YouTube channel. Can you give any advice on podcasting and content, etc.? Congratulations. And well, to be honest, in terms of content, just talk about what you're doing. I guess assuming it's a knitting podcast, just talk about what you're working on and what you're interested in and things like that. To be honest, I didn't really start out podcasting with the intention of it becoming anything. It was more of a way to try and connect with the community, and that's really what it was for me. I find it really hard when people ask questions like that, like asking for tips and advice on podcasting and content, because I don't really know what to say to that, because I am who I am in real life, but on camera, like I talk how I talk in real life. I don't do anything differently. I don't behave any differently. So it's hard for me to sort of say what to do, because I'm just me, and I feel like that's probably the only advice I can give, is to just be yourself, which sounds really annoying and really generic, but it's true. Like, people connect with honesty, so just be honest and be yourself. Next question. You're always growing and learning new things. Do you write goals throughout the year? Sometimes I write down goals, sometimes I just think about them. I don't always write out goals or resolutions or anything like that. I just kind of think about things. I write out things that I might want to achieve in a year, but I'm not sure if that's the same thing. Next question, which resources did you find helpful when learning to spin? Okay, well, I actually created a thread in the Knitting Expat Podcast Ravelry group on Ravelry, funnily enough, and I created a learning to spin thread, or a spinning thread. I'll link it down below. I think it's already linked below all the videos I've posted in Vlogmas, but I'll link it again, where you can find, where in that thread in the first post, I've gone ahead and linked all the different resources, online classes, YouTube channels, websites, etc. that I found useful in learning how to spin. So you can find all the information. I've centralized it all in one place, so you can always find it to to see what I found useful. Another question was, any plans to make patterns for children's sweaters? Well, yes, I have designed several children's garments, sweaters, cardigans, etc. that are in my Ravelry shop at the moment, and I have a new one that will be coming out in the new year. Specific patterns for handspun would be amazing. I'm struggling a little with what to do with all my lovely handspun. So yeah, I am actually thinking about it. I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to do it. I am thinking about designing some patterns with the idea of being able to use them with handspun. And a couple of my patterns actually already work really well for handspun, specifically the Snow Day shawl, which I released almost 2 years ago, and the Far and Wide shawl, which I released earlier this month, are both asymmetrical triangular shawls, and they are written in a recipe format. So they work really well for yarns where you don't necessarily have for non-commercial yarns where you don't have a set amount of yardage, and you can do it by weight. So yeah, those two would work really well for handspun because, like I said, they work on a recipe format and you can sort of like stop them whenever you want. But I am thinking of more designs along those lines as well for handspun. Okay, so that covers it for all the questions I had on Instagram. So now I'm gonna go to YouTube and check out the comments there. Okay, so in terms of questions from the YouTube comments on the video I posted a couple of days ago, so the first question says, what is your favourite part of living in the UK? Again, what's your favourite part of living in the UK again? I will say being close to friends and family has definitely been a big bonus. It's been really lovely for Layla and for us to be close to family, both my parents and Perry's family as well. It's been so nice to see her relationship with them grow and those bonds form and things like that. And I personally never had my grandparents around when I was growing up. My mum's parents had passed away long before I was born, and my dad's parents are still alive, but they don't live very close. They live back in Iran, and we would only get to see them whenever we travel to Iran once every year or so. And I haven't actually seen them since Layla was born, so it's been a while for me as well. So being close to family and for Layla to have that connection with her grandparents has been really, really amazing, and it's always been something I wanted for her. I always wanted her to have that close relationship with her grandparents because I never had that, and Perry did. Perry had a really close relationship with both his grandparents, with grandparents from both sides, sorry. So yeah, I definitely wanted Layla to have that, and that's been my favourite part of being back in the UK, I think. First question from the next person actually asked two questions. First one is, what camera setup do you use for filming? Well, actually the camera I use is this camera. I have two of them now, but I'll explain why in a minute, but it's the Canon G7X Mark II. I got a second one because the first one, which is actually the one I'm currently recording on, is the screws because it's got a flip up screen, and it's got a little flip up screen and a couple of screws on the bottom here that hold the screen in place, and the screws on the back of that one fell out and I didn't realise they were coming loose. So because they fell out, then the screen's not as easy to use. It's a bit more flimsy. I sort of glued it back in place, but it's not holding particularly well, so I needed the second one because for out and about vlogging and stuff it was definitely less fragile, and I keep this one for filming like in the house and stuff, and plus it's still a really good camera for photos as well, so I use it for that. And actually having two has been really handy, so that's what I use. I use the Canon G7X Mark II, and I have a small little flexible leg mini tripod which is currently on now on top of the cat tree, that I also use to help with filming sometimes. It's great if I just put it on a tabletop and stuff. I do have a bigger like full-size tripod, but again that's with our stuff coming back from New York right now, so I don't have it here to show you. But I use the big tripod for my main sort of like photography camera, my digital SLR, as well as for this one sometimes if I need it. So that's really my setup, and I edit everything in iMovie on my Mac. And the second question was, do you plan to have more children? At some point, maybe we'll think about. We've talked about it, but we have no plans on having any more children anytime soon. Yeah, it's not on the cards right now. It's not something we're really thinking about right now. We would like to potentially have another one at some point, but like I said, not at the moment. We're pretty happy with the way things are right now. Then the next question is again from a friend, and she says, I think I missed out a few months when you were getting your new place in the UK. Do you still have the flat in New York? And was it expensive / stressful bringing the cats back from New York as it was from Bahrain to New York? Okay, so again, if you're new and you don't know the context of this question, prior to living in the UK, we lived in, well, actually it'd probably be easier to start the other way. About seven years ago, my husband and I, we moved from the UK, we moved to Dubai. Then from Dubai we moved to Bahrain for a couple of years, and then from Bahrain we moved to New York, and then from New York we moved back to the UK. So that's what the question was about. So when we moved back to the UK from New York, initially we kept the flat that we were living in at the time, the apartment we were living in at the time, because we had the lease. And then and the cats stayed in the apartment because initially we weren't sure how long we were going to be back here for, and we had a combination of friends and pet sitters helping look after them. They were very well looked after, very spoiled little boys. And then by the summer it became really apparent that we weren't going to be we weren't going to be back in New York for a very long time. So we arranged to have the cats move back to the UK. They stayed with Perry's parents initially until we bought our apartment and we moved here, and then they came to stay with us. So and once we moved them out of the apartment, we sublet the apartment for the rest of the lease, because it made no sense we couldn't cancel the lease without it costing us a lot of money, so it just made sense to sublet it at the time. So we sublet it. The lease expired at the end of November, which is why Perry had gone back to get all of our stuff sorted and sent over. So no, we no longer have the flat in New York. Our life in New York is now officially closed off. We've closed off that chapter. Our stuff is now on a ship on its way over, and yeah, it's a little bit sad, but it's also a bit of a relief to know that everything's going to be in one place now. And in terms of expensive and stressful to bring the cats back from New York, expensive, yes. We always knew. We got the cats when we were living in Dubai. We always knew that if we got the cats, that we were going to have to be okay with the expense of moving them with us. Moving the cats has always been the most expensive part of any move we've ever done. And like I said, we've moved internationally 3 times now. And yeah, the cost to transport the boys has always been the most expensive thing. It is expensive. Moving pets internationally is expensive, but like I said, it was something that we thought about before we even got the boys, and decided that that was something we were willing to do, and we were willing to prioritize that and to make sure that we always took them with us wherever we went. Which was also the reason why we didn't initially move them, because we weren't sure. We thought, well, if we're going to go back to New York in 5-6 months time, there's not much point paying to bring them over just to take them back again, because moving for them is stressful more than anything else. I wasn't so worried at this point because they had moved internationally a couple of times already, and so I was fairly confident that they were going to be fine, and they were such troopers. They did really well, and we've never had any problems having moved them. The first question was about spinning. So this person said, I'm not a spinner at all, but I have a question for you about it. You said that you need to get a larger bobbin and flyer for plying the yarn. My question is, if the singles fit on the bobbin, how come the plied yarn doesn't? Is it because the plying makes the yarn thicker, therefore bulkier on the bobbin than the singles? Okay, so when I spin the singles, in this context I was talking about a 2-ply. So I've already split the fibre into 2 50-gram bundles of fibre. So when I'm spinning them on as singles onto a bobbin, I'm spinning them onto 2 bobbins, so 50 grams on each one. So when I'm plying them together, I'm trying to fit 100 grams onto 1 bobbin rather than over 2 bobbins. And even though the bobbins are supposed to be able to accommodate 100 grams of fibre, it really does depend on how evenly you are able to load the bobbin and how thick the finished yarn is. So I was struggling to fit the 100 grams onto the bobbins that I have, which is why I was saying it would be I would like to get a larger the jumbo bobbin and flyer for the spinning wheel that I have, so that it makes plying easier and also allows me to ply larger quantities of yarn on as like a single skein. So the other questions that she's posted was, do you have any goals for 2019? Yes, I have some personal goals of things I would like to do, certain projects I would like to knit, mainly around designs. Hello.
Hello.
Mm.
I'll go into my cave.
If you wouldn't mind, it won't be much longer.
Bye-bye. We go under the stairs and lock myself away in my Harry Potter cupboard.
Okay, so sorry about that. My husband just got home. He popped out for a bit, and yeah, anyway. So the other question is 2019 goals. Yes, like I said, I do have some personal goals, things I would like to knit and design and things like that, but nothing concrete, I would say. Yeah, so I don't think I haven't decided to make any like specific concrete goals this year. Actually, you know what, one goal I do have, I would like to be more present in sort of like the knitting community. I feel like this last year with everything going on in our lives personally, I've sort of withdrawn a little bit from the wider knitting community, and I would like to be more involved with things and physically go to different events. Like this last year I barely went to any events in the UK, and there are so many wonderful fibre events in the UK that I would like to go to. Unfortunately, Unravel is one that happens in February, and I did actually manage to go to that one this year, but unfortunately I don't think I will be able to go next year in 2019 to Unravel, even though I would really like to, mainly because it's Layla's birthday weekend, the weekend that Unravel is on, like the Friday of Unravel is her birthday, so I don't think I will be able to do it this year. But fun news, I will be going to Edinburgh this year, which is really exciting, in March. I'll be off to the Edinburgh Yarn Festival. I'm going on my own this time. I think maybe in the future we'll go as a family, but this year I'm going to go on my own. And I'm really excited about that. I'll be staying with a friend who's also going. It's Grace from Babel's Travelling Yarns. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. Then, yeah, I'm hoping to be able to make it to several other fibre events throughout the year as well. Question 2. If you and Perry had a boy instead of a girl, what do you think you would have named him? I always find this question so fascinating. To be honest, I have no idea, because up until we found out we were having a girl, we pretty much had a girl name sorted. I knew Layla was going to be her name if it was a girl, and Perry never really argued with me on it, so it kind of just was that. That's what it was going to be, and that's what it was. But for a boy, we really struggled. Like I said, up until we found out Layla was a girl, we didn't have a boy name, and then once we found out it was a girl, we stopped thinking about it, because we would just get into arguments. That's basically as far as we got. We couldn't agree on anything for boys, to be honest. And 3, favourite Christmas song or favourite music lately? To be honest, I listen to the radio a lot when I'm driving, and I like all Christmas music. I don't have any specific music at the moment that I'm really into. I will be honest, I've kind of fallen out of touch with what's going on with music lately, and but yeah, I just listen to whatever's on the radio. BBC Radio 1 is pretty much what I listen to in the car, and I love pretty much most Christmas music. I don't think I have a favourite specifically. Sorry, that's not a very fun answer. What's your favourite yarn store in the UK? I've only ever been to a handful of yarn shops in the UK, maybe actually only 2 in London. I've not been to that many UK yarn stores. The 2 that I went to, one doesn't exist anymore, and the other one is Loop in Islington in London, which is a very beautiful shop. Don't get me, it's a lovely store. It's quite small, but very lovely, nicely curated. Have you knitted any items with the yarn you were spinning? Yes, I think I already answered that earlier. I did the hot water bottle cover, and I've knit some ornaments so far. Can you guesstimate how many skeins of yarn you have accumulated this past year, and do you have plans to knit any particular knitwear pieces next year? So again, I've answered that question earlier, but in case you missed it, I've added 147 skeins to my stash this last year. That includes the yarn I received yesterday. And any specific knitwear pieces I want to knit next year. I have 3 sweaters that I want to design next year, and I have yarn for 2 of them and 1 on its way. So all the yarn will be here for it. And yeah, I'm really excited to get started on those in the new year. And I can't wait to share those with you as well. Those are the main things. I have loads of things that I'm always wanting to work on. Another one, with Layla growing up so fast and turning into such a cutie, what is your favourite thing about your daughter's personality? Also, I love watching you cook and bake. What is your favourite comfort food? Okay, the favourite thing about Layla's personality, honestly, that she's just so curious and so interested in everything. She's fiercely independent. She's so independent. She loves doing things for herself, and she just loves the sense of responsibility. So she loves helping out. She helps with laundry. She helps with the dishwasher. She helps with cooking, where it's obviously safe for her to do so. She helps with tidying up laundry, hanging up the laundry, making the bed. Like, she helps with anything that you'll let her help with. She just loves it. She just loves taking part and being involved. Like, she likes to help with the hoovering, even though she can't hold the hoover yet. She'll put her hand on it and you help with the pushing. She just loves it. That's my favourite thing about her personality, just how curious and how like interested she is in everything. Also how much she understands. It always surprises me how much she actually understands as well. What is my favourite comfort food? Anything with pasta. Pasta is life. I love pasta. Do you have any tutorials, suggestions for spinning both drop spindle and wheel? There again, like I said, I have a link. I have a thread in the Ravelry group for spinning tips and tricks, like spinning videos and things that I found useful learning to spin. Not so much about drop spindles, because I'm not I don't spin on a drop spindle and I never have, so I can't really advise on that. But a lot of the YouTube channels that I will have linked in that thread have videos about drop spindling as well. What has been your favourite fibre that you have spun up so far? I've really enjoyed spinning the Ravelry. That was really fun. And I spun up a little sample bit of merino earlier today, and that was really nice as well. I'd spun some merino as like the first time when I spun was with some merino fibre, but I really didn't know what I was doing at that point. And I feel like if I go back to it now, I'd probably enjoy it a bit more. And what else have I spun with that I liked? Shetland. Shetland was really lovely to spin as well. I spun a couple of things with Shetland and that was really fun. And next question I've got is, are you going to do another video like you did last year for Layla with the 1 second snippets of each day of the year? Yes, I am. I have been doing that in the background. I've been saving those up and I will be posting that when she turns 2. Future knits and favourite project of the year. Future knits, I think I talked about that a bit earlier, and favourite project of the year has to be the garments that I've knit this year. I've really loved knitting garments, specifically the ones that I've designed, because I'm still amazed that I am able to design garments for adults and that they actually fit and people are enjoying them and they're knitting them, and that's pretty amazing to me, and I've really enjoyed it. Sorry, that's not a specific one thing. If I had to pick one favourite item from this year, probably the changes shawl, because that was so fun to design, that was so fun to knit up, and it's just so colourful and goes with everything, but also not too colourful, if that makes sense. It's another one of my designs from earlier this year. Next question, did you ever use a drop spindle before getting your wheel, and if so, did you enjoy it? Yeah, I think I've kind of answered that one already. No, I mean, okay, I'll correct myself. I did use a drop spindle once. I didn't like it. Not my thing. I did have a hand spinner, which is different to a drop spindle. I did enjoy that. I only really stopped using it because I felt like it was too slow, and that was really when I knew that if I was going to learn to spin properly and actually be a spinner, it was going to be on a wheel. Next question, what sock pattern would you recommend for a new knitter? If you want a patterned sock, or a vanilla sock would be my go-to for a beginner knitter, if you want to just learn about sock construction, and there are plenty of free vanilla sock patterns out there. I have a free vanilla sock pattern. I also have a paid for vanilla sock pattern, which includes my German short row heel and mini heel flap adjustment, and with a link to a video on how to do the German short row heel as well in there. Those are both in my Ravelry shop, both the free one and the paid one. If you want something that's a little bit more patterned or has some sort of patterning on it, then I would suggest any of the sock patterns that I've designed in the Beyond Vanilla sock collections. Part 1 would be great for absolute beginners. They're just knit pearl textures, and there are plenty of other ones out there as well. I know Hermione's Everyday Socks is also really popular with people as like a first sock pattern. Next question, would you share in more detail some of your family go-to recipes? I would, and maybe I'll do some videos on those at some point in the future, but literally we don't have, like, our go-to recipes aren't even set recipes. They're just, you just throw together what's in the fridge sort of situations. The things that we do fairly regularly is like a chili, or like a bolognese type sauce with pasta, chili with rice, like tray bakes, like chicken or salmon grilled in the oven with some vegetables. Very simple stuff, to be honest. Simple, quick to throw together. Egg fried rice is another good one, throwing in a bunch of veggies with that as well. Maybe I'll do some like recipe videos in the future. What's your absolute favourite item to knit again and again? In terms of something that I knit regularly and again, vanilla socks, just socks in general, is probably the one thing I knit the most of. Last question, what time does it get dark there? It's dark when Layla gets home, so just wondering how early it's dark. I hate winter and such short days, so do I. It gets dark pretty early. It's actually starting to get dark now, and it's not even 3:30. It'll be dark by 4 o'clock. It's miserable when it's dark so early. Okay, so that covers all of the YouTube questions. Thank you so much to everyone who asked those. So thank you so much for sticking with me. And if I don't see you before, have a Merry Christmas, and I wish you a Happy New Year, and I'll be back with a new podcast in 2019. Before then, I will be vlogging continuously throughout December, so I will see you over on the vlogs if you care to watch those. Otherwise, enjoy the holidays. Take care and bye.